Hello and welcome. I'm Raghav and today we are going to learn how to do API request and response chaining, that is how to extract the value from a response of one API and then provide this value in the request of any subsequent API, and this is what we are going to do for a JSON format. We will also do it later for XML. So in this video I'm going to show how to extract JSON response and chain in next API, and we are going to do this on SoapUI Open Source. Now here step number one is, so this is going to be very easy. Do not worry if you have not done this earlier anytime, and you can do it in two ways. One way is using property transfer step, and second way is through a groovy script. I will show you both the ways. So let me go to my SOAP UI. I'm on my Windows system. You can follow this on Windows or Mac. The steps will be same. And here I will first create a project. So let me create a REST project. And for getting some sample API, I will go to Google and search for sample REST API for testing. And here I have got this reqres.in. I will go here. And here we have some sample APIs. So here you can see we have some get APIs, post, put, delete. I will get this list users, and this is the URL. I will copy this URL and provide it here and say OK. And here I have got the request, and because this is a get request, so I do not need anybody. I can directly run this and check, and if I go to JSON, I'm getting this response where I have a list of users and their details. Now let me also get another API. So here we also have a put for update. I will click this, and here this is for update user. Again I will get this endpoint or URL, and let me also save my project. So I will say this is request response chaining JSON. So I will again do a right click on the project and say new REST service from URI, and I will provide the URI here and say OK. Now I will change the method to post. Sorry, this should be put. I will change to put, and for put we need a body here, and that is why it is asking us for a request message or request body. So I can go back to my website and go to this put request, and here is the body. I will copy this and paste it here, and media type is application JSON. So this is fine. I will save everything and run this request, and if I go to the JSON tab, I'm getting this response. So I'm getting the name of the user, the job, and the updated at timestamp. So I have got these two API requests. Let me create a test case and add both of these there. So I will do a right click on the project and say new test suite. You can name it anything. I will just keep test suite 1, and here it is. And here I will again do a right click on test suite and create a new test case, and I will keep the name test case 1. So I have got a test case. Now I have to add the two APIs. So I will go to the first API, which is for list users, and I can either do a right click and say clone request and then provide the name here. I will say this is list users and say OK. Sorry, I have to, this is not exactly, I should say add to test case. Sorry, I have to say add to test case and test suite 1 test case 1 and say OK. And here I have to give the name and say OK. So now you can see it is added in the test case, and if I run this from here and I go to the JSON, I'm getting the response. Also let me also put an assertion. so that, so you can see if I'm running, I'm not getting any pass or fail status, that is I'm not getting green or red. That is because I have not added any assertion. If I add a assertion, let us say I want to add a contains assertion, and I will say data, so the response should contain this data. Okay, and now you can see it is showing in green, that means the session passed. Now the next API request, which is for update user, I have to add this as well to the test case. So the other way is, if you go to the request editor, you will find this option, add this request to a test case. Just click here and then select your test suite and test case and say OK, and give the name. I will say this is update user and say OK. And here again we have got the request here. If I run this from here and see the JSON tab, I am getting the response. Again, let me add a assertion here. So I will say this response should contains a value name, and yes, this is working fine. So we have added these two API requests. Now let's just say I want to get some value from the response of first API, that is list users. I want to get, let us say, a first name. So there are multiple users and we have first names here, first name is here. For every user we have a first name. I want to get some first name from here and then provide it in the next API, that is update user request, and I have to provide that name here so that this update user works with that particular name. So here we have two ways. First I will show you how to use property transfer step. So the step number one is add the API requests in a test case that we have already done. Step number two will be add a property transfer step. So I will go to my test case. I will just click on the first API, do a right click and say insert step, and here we have property transfer, and you can name it anything. I will just keep the default name property transfer and say OK, and here I have got it. Now the reason I clicked on list user and then did a right click and added the property transfer, so that I can get this property transfer just after list users. Otherwise you can also change the location by dragging and dropping. So now in this property transfer I have to create a new transfer or a new property transfer. So click on this plus button and give any name. I will say transfer user name and say OK. So that is step number 3, create a new property transfer, and here we have source and target. So provide source and target details. So here the source is list users and the target is update user. You can also select it from the list, so it will show you all the project elements. I will say list user and update user here, and then the property from where I have to get. So the property is response because we have to get the value from the response of list user, and this is going to be a JSON path. XPath I will cover in a separate session. Here we are covering JSON path. So this is a JSON response, so we will need a JSON path here. For the target, again it is going to be update user. Property will be request because we have to provide it in the request of this API, and then again it is going to be a JSON path because the request is also a JSON format. Now here we have to provide a JSON path to get to that particular value. If I go to my list users API and go to the response, you can see this is a JSON message. And for example, if I want to, let us say I want to get some particular first name, let us say this first name Rachel, so I need to provide the JSON path for this node so that it can then go here and fetch this value. So what you can do is you can copy your entire JSON response and go to jsonpathfinder.com. So this is jsonpathfinder.com, and here you can just paste your entire JSON response, and here on the right section you will see it in this nested way. So you can see all my nodes are here. If I go under data, I have 6 arrays here, or 6 elements, and let me go to the last one, and here it is, first name Rachel. So if I click here, you can see here the XPath is generated, data 5 dot first name. Also, if I go to my Chrome web store and search for JSON Pathfinder, there is an extension on Chrome. So you can see this is an extension, JSON Pathfinder. You can also add it to Chrome. In my case, it is already added. So here, let me show you. Here is the icon for JSON Pathfinder. This is JSON Pathfinder. If I click here, it will open a new tab and open this. Again, I can paste my entire JSON response, and then in this search node field, I will just add the node I want to search. For example, in this case it is first name. I will give and say submit, and you will see it will show me all the occurrences of first name in the JSON message, and also shows the JSON path. So if I want to extract Michael, this is the JSON path. For George, this is the JSON path, and we are interested in Rachel. So this is what is the JSON path. I can copy it from here or from here, anywhere it will be the same. And now go to the property transfer, and in the source I will provide this JSON path. Alright, so this is step number 4, provide JSON path in source and target. And here references are, you can use this jsonpathfinder.com or Chrome extension JSON Pathfinder. Alright, now you can also run this using this run button to check if this is working fine. So if I run this, you can see in the logs I get this value Rachel. That means it is working fine. And if I change this from here, let us say I change it to 4, and now if I run this, it is extracting George. So you can put your JSON path, and because this data is one of the root nodes, I can also say dot and run this. It is still working. Or I can also put dollar dot and the rest of the JSON path. If I run this, this is still working. Alright, now here also we need to provide a JSON path for target. As of now we have just said request, and we have not provided any JSON path. So what it would have done is it would have replaced the entire request with this value that we have extracted. So if I go to update user, you can see it has actually replaced the entire request with this value. So let me just replace it with the original content. So if I go to put, this is the request message, I will add it here, and now I have to get the JSON path for name. Here in the property transfer, I will say in the target update user, the value or the node to update is name, and I can just say name because it is at the root level and there is no nesting. So if I say this name and run this, if I go to the update user, you can see it has updated name with Rachel. You can also say here dot name, you can say dot name or dollar dot name, everything will work. And of course you can also use the same tools JSON Pathfinder to find the JSON path here as well. Now if I run and check, everything is working fine. So I will save my project, and now also let me say I will add this in a session as well. I will add the session in update user, and I will say it should contain Rachel and say OK. So I will go to my test case and now run my test case, and you can see this is working fine. If I go to update user, here it has updated Rachel. So step number 5 is run and check the results. So this is how you can do using property transfer step. This is very easy. Now let us also see very quickly how you can do property transfer using Groovy script. Alright, so I will add a Groovy script here. Let me close all these windows. So I will do a right click, insert step, Groovy script. You can name it anything. I will just keep the default name, and I have got a Groovy script editor. Now for Groovy script, you have a class JSonSlurper in Groovy script that we can use to parse JSON message. If you go to Google and just search for Groovy JSonSlurper, and you will get to this website groovy-lang.org, and parsing and producing JSON. This is the topic, and here you can see JSonSlurper. So I will also make this link available in the notes, and all these notes will be available in the description of this video. So here these are the two statements I need, that is def JSonSlurper new JSonSlurper, and then def object JSonSlurper.parseText, and we will just parse our JSON message. So I will just copy this and put in my Groovy script here. And of course, because we do not have the JSON message yet, I can keep this as empty. So this is what I have added until now. I will save my project and let me run this now. I will run this. I'm getting some error. It says unable to resolve class JSonSlurper at line 1. Alright, so we have not yet imported JSonSlurper from Groovy, so I can also either import it separately or just say here groovy.json.JsonSlurper. So this is the class from where we get this. Let me just search if it is given here. Yeah, so you can see this is the package groovy.json from where we get this parser or get this slurper. So just import this or just say new groovy.json.jsonSlurper. If I run this now, so the earlier error is gone. Now it is saying in line 2 it must have some argument, so that is fine. We should give our JSON message here, so that is fine. And for getting the JSON message from the ListUsers API request, I will say testRunner.testCase.getTestStepByName, and the step name is ListUsers, which is our first API, this one. And here I will say getPropertyValue, and I need to get the response here. So using this I can fetch the response of this API, and I can also store it into a variable. So I will say def resp or use any variable to store it. Alright, let me see if I can expand this and show you the entire code. Alright, so this is the entire code. I can go to my preferences, editor settings, select font, and I will use a lesser font so that you can see the entire statement. So this is what I have done. Now this variable where I have captured the response, I will provide here Alright, so I will provide it here. So let me just make this again to 20. I will also copy this entire code in the description. So now I have got this message here. I have got this entire response and I have passed it with JSonSlurper, and now it is available in the object. So now using this object I can now directly provide the JSON path to extract the value, and you can see it here. After getting the object, we just have to provide the JSON path. So we already know we have got our JSON path here. This is the JSON path. I will just copy this and I will say object dot and the JSON path, and I can store it into some variable. I will say def value equals this, and I will run this to check, and I'm getting the output as Rachel. So that is working fine. Now here the next step will be I have to provide this value in the request of next API, which is update user. Now one of the ways is I will again use Groovy script to get the request of update user and then update the request value and then update the entire request and replace with the new request. So that will have like 2 or 3 steps. One of the straightforward ways is I can add a property step. So in my test case, I will do a right click and say add step and say properties step, and you can name it anything. Let us say I call this my properties. So it is here, and I can create any property here. So let me say user, and I will keep the value as empty. So I've just created a property here. And also let me just show you, if you go to my website, which is automationstepbystep.com, and go to online courses, I'll just show you that. So I have just created a property step and added a property, and now I will get this particular step, my properties, and to get this step I will be using the same statement like this I have used here, testRunner.testCase.getTestStepByName, and here the test step name is my properties, and here I will say dot set property value, and property is user, and the value is whatever value we have extracted from here. So I will copy this and provide it here. So this is the statement, testRunner.testCase.getTestStepByName, set property value and the key end value. So this statement will update whatever value we extract here will be updated here. So if I run this Groovy script now and go to my properties, you can see it has updated Rachel here. Alright, so we are able to update this property. Now the only step is we have to refer this value, which is here in the my properties step, into the update user API request here. And we have already seen in an earlier session, if you go to my website automationstepbystep.com and go to online courses and go to SoapUI, here you will find we have this how to do property transfer and Groovy scripting here, how to get and set properties, through Groovy script. So I will also copy this link in the notes. So we have already seen this here. So how to do this is I will say dollar, in place of this value I will say dollar and curly brackets, and I will give the step name, that is my properties, and hash the property name, that is user, and that's it. I will save the project. So now this will refer the property from the my property step and the user property. If I run this, let us see if it is able to refer it. If I go to the response, and you can see yes, it is updating Rachel here. If I go to my properties and say anything else here, let us say I will say ABC. Now if I go and run my request, you can see it is updating ABC. So that means this is working fine. I can just now go to my test case and run this, and you can see this is working fine. If I go to update user, it is updating Rachel. So this is how you can use Groovy script. Let me also copy this Groovy script and provide in the notes here. So this is the Groovy script, and this is how you can do request and response chaining for JSON in SoapUI open source. I hope this session was useful for you. Thank you for watching.